Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for coming and joining this session, a very important session, a Rohingya genocide session, Rohingya genocide in Burma. I would like to open this session with a Quran citation. I would like to invite Brother Abu Siddiq Arman, who just flew in from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to attend this session. So he will be flying back Tuesday. So he came here from the United States for 3 days from Riyadh for this Rohingya session. He is also a Rohingya born in Arakan. So I would like to invite Brother Abu Siddiq Arman to recite a short surah opening this session. Please, Brother Siddiq.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم.
Thank you very much, Brother Abu Siddiq. It's a very, alhamdulillah, great recitation. Dr. Abu Siddiq is a PhD doctoral candidate in King Saud University in Riyadh, a Rohingya. And he is not only doing doctoral studies, PhD, he is very, alhamdulillah, knowledgeable and fluent in Islam. Thank you, Jazakallah khair. Today, before I go to each honorable speakers, distinguished speakers, I would like to give you some idea about how serious this issue is, that the depth and width of the problem of Rohingya people are facing in the genocidal campaign by the government of Myanmar and the Buddhist radicals against Rohingya people. I would like to call on a couple of witnesses to give you a personal story on a personal touch that they have suffered. I would like to invite to the podium Sister Sabura from Arakan, that she personally witnessed and suffered these atrocities and genocidal campaign by the government of Myanmar and the Buddhist radicals. Please, Sister Sabura, please come to the podium.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Jamana mein Sobiya phi pare. तो अरकाम माजे 2015 माजे होइदे मामलारे कनाई शिंगुरु दाइवाला.
I'm going to do translation for you in English, and sister said she is going to describe what happened to Rohingya Muslims in Arakan.
तो 2012 में जे होइला मामला नोइबा आगोती फाराकल में जे मिलिट्री कॉल बेकुल वाइन गुरी वाली तो तुम्हारा रे आरा बॉडी से कॉल अटैक गुरी ना वारे फान तुम्हारा रे साउशा गुरी बेला शिदे इंदलो होइए तो मुसलमान कॉल बेकुल शांति गुरी ताकि आरा रे केसु गुनो गुरी वो बॉडी से कॉल तो रात 12 बजे की यार 2 बजे इतना मिलिट्री कॉल होरी गियो गई तो मोको कॉल गोली गई हाथी वाला गोली गई.
In 2012 violence, the Burmese Rakhine Buddhist forces came to Rohingya villages and told them that they have heard that there may be a turbulent situation, and they came here to provide protection to the Rohingya villages, and they surrounded the Rohingya villages and told the people to stay in the village, not to get out of the village, go anywhere. And then, a couple of hours later, all the soldiers, Rakhine police and Rakhine army, Burmese army has disappeared. And then Buddhist mobs moved in and attacked Rohingya families. And as you can see, that was planned. The forces, Myanmar forces came and told the Rohingya villagers not to go anywhere, means they are going to be confined them so that they cannot run away, so that they planned the attack.
tôi bảo gỡ rồi giờ là để phải để tôi mình ta giúp cái sum mal cái số này mà đấy ni ta jana re basa ya re tara dai goi phải đó đấy অনুভূতির ভালো দিয়ে তো বুড়া বুড়া মানুষ কল দূর দিন না মারে বুড়া বুড়া মানুষ কল হারিয়া রে অনুভূতির জ্বালে দের তো বাচ্চা বাচ্চা ফের বেন কল অনুভূতি জ্বালে দের তো জন জমাই ফানি কল না তানিয়ার জুলমি ঘরে यार জুলমি গরি বাড়ি পুলিশ বন্ধুলা মারি ফেলা হারি ফেলার ইন্দলা.
She said that in her own eyes, she witnessed that the Buddhist mobs, backed by Rakhine police, Buddhist police, has attacked the Rohingya Muslim families in the house. They have killed the household members. They have killed the children. They have killed the elderly who cannot even walk. And they have they set the houses on fire. She personally saw in her eyes. They have set houses on fire and throw the children into the fire. And also, they kill the elderly and throw them in the fire, burn them. And they pull all the young women and they rape them in front of her eyes. And not only rape them, they have shot them after raping and killed these young women who are raped by these Rakhine Buddhist and Burmese forces.
Jambas basa fajiri ya kangar butore tara hai na hare loi na hare fonna buri na hare to ara de era iya de shanti gi hoi tara la to tona ki gor gi diba de kangoli gomo de tara la kana to ara kana gushi gori do goro.
They have to leave their villages. They went to IDP camps. Many of them are IDP camps. Many of them have left somehow to Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Bangladesh, wherever they could find the refuge. And they arrived here, and then they are thanking the government of the United States and the community, interfaith community, and resettlement agencies, United Nations Refugee, UNHCR, and others, that they have changed their lives to bring this in the country so that they do not have to worry about getting killed anymore, and they are seeking your support in this country, that they want to advance the Rohingya cause through your support in this country.
Ara ere shanti gurte kide ara ti shanti nalagar ara mita zula ara Rohingya phai mi Rohingya generation la ula ara misha namasure ula alati dua mageti ara Rohingya kala hotte shanti paibote hotte manna pari paribo hotte shanti kori ma bara mita zula stay sunguri paribo ara aigi ara ma ara bai mon bekone de tai ki ho gai itara zindagi la ke tumhara kana kori help me Rohingya, please help me.
We came here to this country, we found the refuge, and we are not happy. Although we have a secured life here, we have to worry every night. We cannot sleep because for those who have left, for those who we left behind in our homeland, we cannot find peace in our lives. No matter where we go, we still have to worry. And your help, we hope that your help, our support to our cause can only solve this issue. So that's her testimony to you, that how a person herself has witnessed in front of our own eyes what happened to her neighbors, what happened to our villagers, the atrocity. These are all part of the plan by the radicals in the government in conjunction with the monks, radical elements in the country. Now, I would like to call upon Mr. Samuel Shropshire, who is the founder of Muslim Voice for Peace and Reconciliation. Mr. Shropshire have gone to refugee camps, and he has personally witnessed the plight of Rohingya in the camps, and he will give a brief statement in English.
I would say that I've worked in human rights for 35 years. I came to Islam 3.5 years ago through a good friend, Shafiq Zubair, who is a Rohingya, who brought me to Islam. I'm very grateful. Because of Shafiq, I decided to go and take a look at for myself in Burma, Thailand, refugee camps, as well as in Bangladesh. What I saw, I have never witnessed in my 35 years of work in human rights. In Bangladesh, I was able to visit UNCHR, United Nations refugee camps in the south. There are 60,000 Rohingya in refugee camps. Many of them have been there for 20 years. It's an unbearable situation. Nobody should remain in a refugee camp for 20 years. But the worst is on the streets of Bangladesh. 240,000 Rohingya refugees, many of them children without parents. Their parents died either in Bangladesh or while they were en route through the forest to get to Bangladesh from Arakan. Thousands of children living on the street, trying to survive, many of them selling drugs to survive. Many of them being sexually abused to survive. I pray that something can be done to make this issue more known throughout the world. We as Muslims have an awesome responsibility to care for our own. There's enough money within the Muslim world to take care of the situation. More needs to be done. Thank you for letting me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shropshire, for giving your personal accounts on what you have witnessed in the Rohingya refugee camps. There's only tip of an iceberg. There's only a small portion what Mr. Shropshire have described in Bangladesh. You go to Thailand, they call it detention centers. They don't have any refugee camps, detention centers. There are 10, 15, 20,000 Rohingya men, women, and children are there, and they have been sold to human traffickers. And there are reports from writers you have seen that authenticated reports that these women and children, and they are being trafficked to sex slave industry in southern Thailand, the boat people crisis, and many other things. So this is the refugee camps in those countries are dire situation. And not to forget the refugee IDP camps inside Myanmar, inside Burma, in Arakan. They are targets of human traffickers. They are selling women and children for the sex industry and other hard labor situation. I'm going to get started now with the speakers, but I would like to give you a quick overview of the situation, and then update you with the current status, and then our distinguished speakers will have 10 minutes each to give their perspective. And then at the end, after all the speakers speak, and then I would like to take some questions from the audience for any speakers that you might want to address to. As you know, the situation in Arakan you have just heard, has not improved. It has not improved. On top of that, they have gone from bad to worse. You have heard all these stories. This is what happened. I want to give you a very quick brief. This what's happening in Muslim, plight of Muslims, plight of Rohingya, is all pre-planned. It's part of the national strategy because of the government of Myanmar and the Buddhist radicals have developed this genocidal strategy to eliminate Rohingya population. If you look at the Roman statue, read the articles, what is genocide, and look at what's happened to Rohingya, you cannot separate them. We often, international community, go to backstage to say bravely that it's a genocide or not, but let's go by definition. Then we will argue whether it's genocide or not. We don't want to be diplomatic. International community want to be sometimes diplomatic, but reality remains what is happening in Arkan. These are pre-planned. Government has done this. They use monks, they use radicals to cause the violence so that, this is the tactic, strategy they use. Government of Myanmar does not want to address the core issues of citizenship that they have taken away from Rohingya people. They don't want to address the core issues of human rights that include freedom of movement, free to marry, freedom to seek higher education, land ownership, free to worship, want to pray. You don't have that freedom. That all series of human rights violations. Myanmar government does not want to address that, so they will develop a distraction strategy to distract from the core issues of violence. So now, after 2012 and 2030 violence, they stop the violence because they can stop it, they can create it. They have the strategy, they are the masterminds. So they stopped it. Now what's going to happen? International community want to do anything about Rohingya issue, they say, oh, no, we cannot do this. It will create instability. It will create violence in Arkan. So let's not do this. You see, this is the whole idea, the tool, the instrument they are using as violence. Anything they don't want to do, they use Rakhine as an excuse, as a reason why they don't want to do it. They are not allowing international NGOs to go and provide humanitarian assistance. International community asks, why cannot we go there, give that assistance to all people, Rohingya and Buddhists, all, not just Rohingya, all people affected by this violence. And they said, oh, no, you cannot go, we cannot let you go there because it will cause violence. So, give the citizenship back to Rohingya. Return of IDPs, 140,000 Rohingya and Khmer IDPs are in camps. 21st century concentration camps, that's what New York Times called. They went to there and they saw it, they call it 21st century concentration camp. They are not allowing the Rohingya IDPs to return to their villages in 13 townships. What's the reason? Verification. Oh, they have to verify. We know what to verify. They are really from here. What they did, they burned their villages. You heard the story. They lost all the documents. They could not take any nationality cards, NRC cards, Thung Khao show, all what they have, family registration card, everything. They lost everything. They don't have anything. Now, how they can produce? What they can produce show that they are not from there. These are all pre-planned. The situation is very dire with the verification process. They are demanding now that they have to be verified that they are from there, not from somewhere else. And they come with green card ideas, pink card ideas. They gave the white cards and took them away. So this is what is going on. There's a crisis after a crisis we are facing now. Before we can address one crisis, there's a second one. So we cannot go to the first one. Before second one is addressed, a third crisis. So you cannot go to the second one. These are domino effects we are facing. So right now, there's very little room to talk about citizenship. Now, every day, there's bad news. Last week, 2 weeks ago, on top of all this, bad news was that religious conversion law. okay, marriage law. These kind of laws are they are passing. You read those laws, and you read the 1935 Nuremberg law in Nazi Germany. Article 1 to Article 7. Article 1, 2, 3, please read that. Only thing you are not finding there is a Rohingya named Rohingya. This is the 1935 Nuremberg law from Nazi Germany is revisiting Myanmar in this 21st century age. And this happening under the watchful eyes of the international community. These are serious situations we are facing. So we have conversion. A Muslim woman can marry a Buddhist man, but a Muslim man cannot marry a Buddhist woman. Religious conversion law, the same thing. Muslim can convert to Buddhism, but Buddhists cannot convert to Islam, or a Christian minority, a Christian religion for that matter. So these kind of laws are being passed 2, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Again, last week, 2 weeks ago, Rohingya MPs who were officially elected, the citizen Rohingya MPs, they were banned. They cannot contest in the election. They won the election, 2010 election, national election. Now they said, no, you are not from here. You are not citizen of Myanmar. You cannot stand for election. So they denied all the Rohingya MPs, not giving permission, and banned them from election. And then comes Rohingya voters. This is the first time in the history of Rohingya, in Arakan, in Myanmar, the Rohingya people are not allowed to vote. 2010 election, they were able to vote with using their white cards the government gave them. Now they're taking away white cards. A few months ago, 6 months ago, projecting this, what's happening today, to deny their voting rights. The Rohingya people cannot vote. Rohingya people cannot stand for election for the first time in the history of Burma. So these are the situation. We can go on and on. These our distinguished speakers will give you their perspective. Personally, they visit the places. But one thing I want to mention that what can we do about this? What can we? The solution is outside Burma. Inside Burma, they have marginalized Rohingya community. They're threatening to arrest. They're beating them. They cannot speak out for the rights. So international community is the answer. We have been a strong advocate in the international community. Arakan Rohingya Union and Burma Task Force and many other organizations have been a strong advocate of Rohingya cause internationally. We have made tremendous progress. United Nations General Assembly. We have 4 or 5 resolutions about Rohingya and Myanmar. United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva. We have 4 or 5 resolutions. Recently, a couple of months ago, there was a strong resolution proposed by OIC, sponsored by Pakistan, alhamdulillah, and it was passed in Human Rights Council, United Nations in Geneva. We have resolution 418 in US Congress. Inshallah, we are pursuing for another one in Senate. So a Canadian Parliament has had a hearing. There's a hearing about Rohingya issues on the Capitol Hill many times. So internationally, we need to keep the pressure on Burma. The word I always use is sustain. We have done effectively this work throughout the world, but we have to be careful not to drop the ball, not to slow down. We have to sustain the momentum. We have to increase the momentum so that Burma government looks for windows where things are sliding, and then they will do the bad things. Boat people crisis, there were international outcry 3 months ago, right? And they did something. Now boat people crisis, international outcry had subsided. So they are going back to what they have been doing to Rohingya people. So we need to sustain the momentum internationally. You American Muslim Ummah, you have your congressmen, you have your district, you have your senators. You need to reach out to them and voice your demand that as an American Muslim, you are asking your senators to support the resolution in Senate, in the House, and to pressure White House to work with Foreign Relations Committee and others in Capitol Hill, and working with NGOs like United to End Genocide. Very effective, alhamdulillah, in Washington. So that's what your job is. You can make the difference. Rohingya people in Burma are trying, but you know their situation. Every one of you count. Every one of you count, lending your support. You don't have to put financial support always. Your moral support, political support, humanitarian support. There's all kind of support you can lend. You know, being here is a significant support. Being here, just listening to our speakers, you can do that. And you have a moral obligation, moral responsibility to save a community in the world, in one corner of the world called Burma, is about to disappear. They are headed for extinction, and you can save that. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah. And now I gave the coverage. I'm going to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is here. We are very honored to have our first speaker, Lord Nazir Ahmed from British Parliament. And I'm give you a very quick background about Lord Nazir Ahmed. Flew from London to attend this session, address this session. And Lord Nazir Ahmed is a member of the House of Lords in British Parliament. And he has a long career, but I'm going to highlight a couple of things. Lord Ahmed began his political career as a local Labour Party councillor in 1990, becoming chair of the South Yorkshire Labour Party in 1993, and served at both positions until 2000. And there are much more Lord Nazir is doing in British Parliament. He is a strong advocate of Rohingya cause. Inshallah, Lord Nazir will give his perspective how they have been active on Rohingya issue in the UK. Thank you very much.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dr. Waqaruddin, a very distinguished panel of speakers, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Let me first of all say thank you to ISNA for organizing this meeting this afternoon. I had prepared some notes to speak on very similar issues, which you heard the moving testimonies, and of course, Brother Waqaruddin, who has given us detail of the genocide that is taking place. I'm afraid I'm the least qualified out of the panel because Honorable Thomas Andrews, who is working not only in Washington, D.C., but around the world, and he's visited the areas with the Rohingya community. And of course, my brother Abdul Malik Mujahid not only has been running campaign here in the United States, but internationally, I know that he was one of the organizers of the conference in Oslo, and other speakers have similar experience. I can tell you that last week I was in Korea, in Seoul, and there was a conference on peace and development, and a monk from Sri Lanka, who was the chancellor of university where monks are trained, made a very good speech in relation to this peaceful religion of Buddhism. And he said that Buddhism is the most peaceful religion in the world. And of course, a lot of what he said, I think all the religions generally share in terms of values and in terms of their beliefs. And then when he finished and there was opportunity to ask questions, I was the first one to raise my hand, and I said, "Sir, could you please explain to me? I always thought that Buddhism is a very peaceful religion. Everybody in the world thinks Buddhism is the most peaceful. In fact, they don't say that about Islam or Christianity, but they say about Buddhism." And I said that I went to Sri Lanka and I saw BBS, those Buddhist monks burning down houses and buildings and businesses of Muslims. And then you have 969 And Thomas was telling me that they've changed their name now. The Buddhist monks who've been involved with rape, burning down houses, and burning down mosques, and of course, driving communities out of their houses. How does that compare with what you've just said? And he was very diplomatic. He sort of, first of all, said, you know, you are from England. I studied there. It's a great country, just to calm me down. And then, but he was very clever. Then he turned it around and he said, you know, Islam is a peaceful religion and you've got ISIS. And, you know, we also have 5% of our 95% is very peaceful. But what I said back was that ISIS is not made of muftis and imams. Yours are Buddhist monks who are doing this. And that's the difference. But I also, and there's no justification for ISIS, by the way, because I did try to explain that ISIS has nothing to do with Islam. These are former socialist Saddam Hussein's Baathists who were driven out because we had sort of dismantled the state. And we dismantled the soldiers and their administration and sent them back. We didn't give them a penny. We didn't give them anything. And they were pushed back. And the new government, which was led from Najaf and Malik's government, that pushed them so economically, and no justification what they are doing. But that gave them a cause to fight. And the only thing that could unite them was not socialism or Baathism, but it was about Islam. It was Islam that actually united them, at least in my understanding. But today, what you see in both in Burma and in Sri Lanka is that these monks that have been doing this. So about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when we first saw those terrible photographs on social media, many of you would have seen those horrible pictures of boys, girls, old men being slaughtered and bodies laid on the floor, houses that are burnt down. And of course, you must have visited the 2 stalls here at the convention center. And those pictures of innocent people that have been burnt down. And of course, British newspapers have said that Rohingya community is the most persecuted community in the world. And I totally agree with Dr. Vakaruddin that this regime is the modern fascists, the Nazis. They're using exactly the same tactics. And if you look, I mean, 2.5 years ago, when I actually saw these pictures, immediately we organized a meeting with the ambassador of Burma, Myanmar, and we went to see him with a delegation of politicians, Muslim politicians in the British Parliament, as well as one brother who is from Burma. And we went to see him, and of course he tried to justify. And then he gave us this excuse, and he said, well, you know, most of these people are not from Burma. They are new people they are Bangladeshi citizens who have come after 1971 and who are actually still coming in because they are economic migrants. And then I check up. Then I actually done some research, and Muslims have been in Burma when Minso in 1430 of the kingdom of Maruk, after 24 years of him being deposed, he stayed in Bengal. And then he regained control of the Arkanese throne in 1430, and with the military assistance from the Bengal Sultanate. So Muslims came along from Bengal 1430. And so going back hundreds of years of these communities that have been there. But more importantly, British, when we actually took over this piece of land, as we've done in the past, we've taken some people with us who could produce some products, so we can make money, but also so keep our soldiers over there. Going back over 100 years, in 1826, there was, that's when the British took over, and then they took farmers, laborers from this part of the world. But really, the problem actually started, as I see it, is since this military regime took over. And because they deprived democracy, they wanted to divert all their problems and blame the Muslims, like the Nazis did, blaming the Jewish communities in Europe. They have done exactly the same, and they are sort of running a similar type of laws and rules. You've heard about the deprivation of their citizenship, deprivation of their rights, the new green card, no right to vote, no right to stand for elections. From 1946 to 1962, Rohingya members of parliament, but in fact, they were members in the government too as ministers. And today, even the great democratic leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, the one that we celebrate around the world, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, she does not mention Rohingya community. That's a shame. That's a shame, and we should say it as well. So whilst they, you know, the regime talks about the whole thing started from the gold shop, the arguments there, then they talk about this rape, allegedly, and then actually, like Brother Vakar said, and all the speakers will tell you, this was designed, this was done deliberately, and deprivation of their citizenship, their rights. And actually, I have no idea what their plans are, really, because the problem with this situation is that sadly, nobody wants the Rohingya communities anywhere. And that's why you saw over 2,700 people perished in the sea, and nobody wanted them, and been thrown into the sea, in deep seawater. So I think there are other speakers, and I really didn't want to take time, but I think that there are a number of things that we can demand from our parliamentarians. Yes, I congratulate the Congress for the fantastic resolution, and I hope that the Senate will also pass something. We have an all-party parliamentary group, which Baroness Kinnock, who's a great woman, wife of former leader of the Labour Party, Neil Kinnock, and she was a minister in Labour government as well. She's a strong advocate and also chairman of the all-party parliamentary group, which supports the Rohingya community. We don't have a similar system, but at least this APPG is doing quite a lot of work. But I think together we should be demanding that this regime ends its policies and practices of genocide and restores full and equal citizenship rights to Rohingya communities. We should demand that they institute the right of return of all the displaced people. And we should also demand and that they provide protection for the vulnerable and for all the communities, including Rohingya community. And then that they should actively promote reconciliation between communities, because they're the ones who've actually created this hatred between Muslims and non-Muslims. But can I say, we can demand these things unless we demand that the international community should put sanctions on this regime. It's not going to happen. So let's demand that there should be sanctions put on this Burmese government until they give rights and protection to the innocent and poor people of Burma, the Rohingya communities. So I'm just come to show my solidarity with yourselves, and anything that we can do, inshallah, we will be supporting you from London and from Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lord Nazir Ahmed, for your touching speech on Rohingya issue, and that's going to go a long way on the international level. Now I call upon our second distinguished speaker, Honorable Tom Andrews. Honorable Tom Andrews is the President and the Chief Executive Officer of the United to End Genocide based in Washington, D.C. in the United States. Congressman, Honorable Tom Andrews is a former congressman from the state of Maine, and he was most recently he has most recently served as the National Director of Win Without War, a coalition of the 40 national organizations promoting a more progressive national security strategy that calls for prudent use of military engagement. He has worked to promote democracy and human rights throughout the world, many regions of the world. Honorable Tom Andrews is a strong advocate of Rohingya people. He has fought for Rohingya in the Capitol Hill, testified with me many times in the Congress hearings, and he was actively engaged in Resolution 418 and pursuing right now for more resolutions from U.S. Senate, as well as more resolution from U.S. House of Representatives. Honorable Tom Andrews has visited Arakan, visited many parts of Burma. He has personally witnessed how these people are suffering. And I call upon Honorable Tom Andrews to provide his perspective and his experience and his views and visions about Rohingya cause. Please welcome Honorable Tom Andrews.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dean, and thank you very much, everyone. I brought my watch with me because, as I told the group in the last ISNA conference that I had the honor to participate in, I confessed that I was a recovering politician, and that as much as I would like to keep my comments brief, I make sure I have my watch on me so that I'm assured to keep them brief, because it's kind of it's kind of what you get when you're a politician. You end up speaking on and on. But we have some very important speakers here today. We're short on time, so I'm going to try and reduce my remarks to the essence of what I would like to say today. Since the last ISNA conference in which I spoke, I wish I could come today and tell you that conditions have improved, but as you've heard so poignantly and powerfully today, and as we've seen in the news over the last year, things have deteriorated. They've gotten even worse. And as we've heard, the rights of the Rohingya have been systematically abolished, denied, and campaigns of hatred and bigotry, systematic campaigns, well-financed campaigns, stirring up fear and hatred among the people of Burma about Muslims, the Muslim community in general, and the Rohingya in particular. They've never been more powerful, well-financed, and sophisticated. So things, I'm afraid to say, are even worse than they were when I addressed the ISNA conference last year. But I want to say that there is hope as well. There are elements of hope, and the hope resides in our minds, in our hearts, and in compassion, a fundamental ingredient of the values of Islam. And we've been able to see those three combined with action to move people in directions that are so important. Inadequate, we have a long way to go, but we've been able to see movement in the right direction. Last year, I asked everyone who was participating to please support H.R. 418, a resolution before the House of Representatives that brought this crisis directly to the floor of the House and called upon not only the government of Myanmar to change its policies and reverse direction from the systematic persecution, but called on the government of the United States to take a stronger stand on behalf of the Rohingya. It passed overwhelmingly. And one of the most powerful moments of that debate was the fact that they took, since I've been here last, I've been up into the camps visiting Rohingya 3 times. 3 different trips. And I took photographs of what I saw because it would be unbelievable, I thought, to just simply try to describe what I was seeing. So I took these photographs and I brought them to the halls of Congress. And leaders of both the Democratic and Republican Party said, when we go to the floor to talk about the Rohingya, we want your photographs on the floor with us, showing the Rohingya people. We want to tell the stories of the suffering that is going on in that part of the world. And so the head and the heart, the compassion, was appealed to of members of Congress and the American public. And just as we saw in the horrible tragedy going on in Syria and in Europe just 2 days ago, that photograph of a 3-year-old Syrian that was on a beach, face down, drowned, trying to save himself and his father trying to save his family, has turned around the intransigence of so many governments to not accept and not support those who are seeking salvation. The head and the heart, very, very powerful. I went into the camps, as I mentioned 3 times. One of my trips, I brought a group of ASEAN parliamentarians from Indonesia and from Malaysia and from Cambodia and nations around ASEAN. And I said, I want you to see for yourself what it is we're talking about. Because ASEAN, in addition to the United States, is in a position of incredible influence on the government of Myanmar. And you must act in ways that you haven't acted before. So we issued a report which I have brought today. And this report was put before the ASEAN Summit of Prime Ministers in Kuala Lumpur in the spring and was delivered to each prime minister that was attending that summit. These parliamentarians had a news conference that was widely covered throughout the region. The New York Times, the Washington Post, it was covered in Burma. And for the first time, the ASEAN prime ministers decided that the principle of non-interference, which is such a core principle of the way ASEAN works, was no longer adequate. The foreign minister of Malaysia announced in a news conference opening up that summit, he said, ladies and gentlemen, the principle of non-interference is no longer adequate when we see the crisis of the Rohingya before our very eyes. And then, of course, we heard the boat crisis, which was a horrible, horrible tragedy. But before the eyes of the world, not only did we see this human tragedy, but this tragedy of negligence of government and public officials. Burma, of course, the government of Myanmar characteristically responded by denial. They said that there are no Rohingya on those boats, and they're certainly not from our country. Of course, the president of Myanmar says there are no Rohingya in my country, continues to publicly say this. And then the other governments in the ASEAN countries that were on that, surrounding those poor, desperate people, instead of mounting a major search and rescue operation, deploying navies to rescue these families, they deployed their navies to tie the boats up and pull them farther out to sea so they wouldn't have responsibility for those desperate asylum seekers and refugees. This, ladies and gentlemen, is outrageous and unacceptable and should be unacceptable to every human being on this planet. What an outrage! But the world saw it. The world saw it. And from that recognition, the heads, the hearts of some were raised, and finally there was some action. Now, as I said, there is a long, long way to go. There are elements of hope, but the challenge is immense. H.R. 418 passed in the House of Representatives, but those of you who are from this country and helped us to pass 418, we need you to help us to pass a similar a similar resolution in the United States Senate that is now being developed. Senator Robert Menendez of New Jersey is spearheading that effort. We need to generate support. The Senate has to hear from us, number one. Number two, I was so pleased when the Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, who leads the Senate, and has been a strong advocate of Aung San Suu Kyi and the reforms and the positive steps that were taken when Aung San Suu Kyi went from house arrest into Parliament. But he took to the floor a few months ago and he said that he was very disturbed by developments in Burma today. And he says that it's about time for the United States to start reconsidering its relationship with this country and start considering potential sources of economic pressure on that government. We need to support that kind of talk coming from the United States Senate. And President Obama. When President Obama lifted the economic pressure on the government of Burma that led to the reforms that were celebrated a few years ago, he said that he would retain the authority to put individual sanctions on individuals who are responsible for human rights violations. He would put people on a list called the Special Designated Nationals List that would provide penalties for them and their families, economic bite, in other words. There is not despite the fact that human rights violations have skyrocketed in the past few years, particularly against the Rohingya in the country of Burma, there is not a single living person that has been added to that list that has been given individual sanctions because of human rights violations. And ladies and gentlemen, that is an outrage, and we have to tell President Obama that the pressure needs to start now to defend the people in that part of the world. Now, I'm looking at my watch. I'm about to wind up. That is to even go further, but I'm going to wind down. To tell you that we are in the midst right now of a very dangerous situation. The United Nations, UNHCR, issued a report just a few days ago that said that there is a grave danger of that boat crisis breaking out once again. That the combination of the continued deteriorating conditions in Rakhine State, in Burma, in the camps, the combination of those deteriorating conditions, the blocking of aid going to so many desperate people, and the end of the rainy season, and therefore the possibility of human traffickers enticing more people out to sea is great. So we could be seeing, according to the United Nations, a new wave of refugees and asylum seekers in the dangerous waters once again. We also know that there is an election coming up, a national election in Myanmar in November. And politicians, particularly in this part of the world, are very adept at using fear and prejudice as political weapons. And so we can fully expect that poisonous rhetoric, that dangerous rhetoric, to continue, in fact, to escalate as we move to the elections in November. So we have a very important job to do. As Americans, as humans, it is time for us in this period of danger to speak truth to power, to rise up with our heads, our hearts, and our activism to change the course of history. In big ways and small. You know, when I had lunch after we had the session 1 year ago at ISNA, and I asked one of the distinguished speakers, I said, what would be the single most important thing for President Obama to do when he visits Burma in November, which is of last year? And he looked at me and he said, if he just said the name Rohingya when he was in Burma, because the government is putting all kinds of pressure on governments that do business with Burma to not say the name. And so no one's saying their name. They said even Secretary Kerry never mentioned their name when he went to Burma last. It would be so powerful, he said, if the president would just say their name. So when we spoke to the administration, we talked to key officials in the State Department, they said, oh, well, what's in a name? What's in a name? And so we started a campaign in which, an Instagram campaign. I gave this speech to some kids up in Maine. And they said, that's terrible, we're going to start an Instagram campaign. And everyone was holding a sign, and it said, Mr. President, just say their name. Just say their name. And this went from Falmouth High School to all over the world, hundreds and hundreds of thousands, until finally, at the end of his trip, an Associated Press reporter said, there's something going on all over the internet that wants you to say the name Rohingya. Mr. President, will you say the name? And he said the name, and he said we need to stop the attacks that are going on against this minority. So in big ways and in small ways, let us recognize the horror, but let's also recognize the hope. And with our heads and our hearts and our action, let's save the Rohingya. Thank you very much.
We're doing okay with time. Before I call upon our next distinguished speaker, I do want to thank Lord Nazir Ahmed for coming here, because Lord Nazir will have to catch a flight, and then Lord Nazir will be leaving in a few minutes. So let's please thank Lord Nazir Ahmed for coming here. Our next honorable speaker is Imam Dr. Abdul Malik Mujahid. And I don't think I need to say a lot about Dr. Mujahid, because American Muslim Ummah is has well recognized Dr. Mujahid's dedication to Rohingya cause. Briefly, Dr. Mujahid is an American Muslim imam, an award-winning author, and a producer with focus on contemporary social issues, public policy, and Islam West and West relations. He chairs Burma Task Force USA, which is a coalition of 19 major American organizations to stop the genocide in Burma. Imam Mujahid also serves currently serving as the chair of the Parliament of World Religions. Imam Mujahid is very passionate about Rohingya issue. He is a strong advocate, particularly in the United States, and he often travels to international destinations. He has been to Malaysia, Indonesia, met with Rohingya refugees, and has a personal story he has. And Dr. Mujahid is also very active in mobilization of communities throughout the world, and conducted many seminars, sponsored many seminars and Rohingya sessions in Oslo and many other locations. And Dr. Mujahid will continue to support our cause, and he's very dedicated. And Dr. Mujahid will give his views on Rohingya issues and his achievements and his mission on this day. Please welcome Dr. Imam Malik Mujahid.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah alladhi kafa wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad al-Mustafa. Lord Nazir Ahmed and congressmen and rest of the distinguished speakers, the most which I would like to recognize is the presence of good number of Rohingyas themselves in the audience. I would say, may Allah bless you, make your challenges of settling in a new country easier for you. And the way that sister stopped, I'm here, but what about those people who are over there? And that was the phrase which I keep hearing from the people who were just 3-4 days before I met them have arrived in Indonesia. After all the story and conversation, they'll say, well, but I am here now. What about those people? So let's pray that those people are blessed with neighbors who are people of open heart and kind minds. And the world realizes there are challenges, but everyone had rights to life. It's very easy when we are victims, or supporters of victims, do not pay attention to the humanity of the other. For that reason, I like to share with you that American Buddhist community in North America stands very steadfastly with Rohingyas and the challenges they are facing. They have, each time I call, the call is not a call about convincing anyone. So just tell us what would you like us to do. And they have done each and everything which we have asked them to do in support of Rohingyas. So American Buddhist community stands with you. And it is very important to realize for Muslims, because we hear stereotypes all the time. Islamophobia plays as an element of what is happening to Rohingyas there. And that's the same Islamophobia who killed off almost all Muslims or thrown them out from Central African Republic. And this is the same thing about which New York Times wrote in an editorial, sort of heading Holy Alliance or something against Muslims, and it was talking about extremist Buddhists, not all Buddhists in Burma, connecting with extremists in Sri Lanka and connecting with extremist BJP and RSS people in India. And I was surprised that New York Times is keeping that type of an eye on that. So Islamophobia, what we fight in America, contributes to hurting people all over the world. So this is an extremely important point to remember. Second point I'd like to share with you is the food is a major problem. When you ask a refugee, as Congressman you might have done, why you're here? So there's nothing to eat. I cannot do a job, so I have to get out somewhere for that purpose. The calorie intake, Professor Penny Green of UK have established, they are being provided food which is at the level slightly higher than Nazi Germany. Unfortunate Nazi Germany to the people in the camps. Now United Nations have agreed to reduce that calorie count. So now they will be given food which will be lower level of calorie level than it was given to the Nazi concentration camps. So one of the requests is that we pay attention to that. And now within those four things they give, they have to sell that to buy fuel. They have to sell that to buy oil to cook or something of this nature. So one of the things which we'll be focusing quite a bit is that those people who are there subject to provision from the United Nations are provided that. So Burma Task Force has essentially operated on one method, and that is give us 10 minutes of your time on the daily basis. And you will have people with our brochures and sign-up sheets. So you sign up your emails. So we can all have extraordinary speeches and feel and cry, but we need to translate our passion and anger into action. How do you do that? Burma Task Force model, which is a coalition of 19 organizations, is that we give you a call once a week, sometime a little more often, but once a week only. It will take you 1 minute to read what you need to do. And we very clearly identify, today we would like you to make this one phone call, or 2 phone calls, or 3 phone calls, or send an email. So one of the campaigns we'll be doing is going to about increasing the calorie intake, which United Nations has agreed with the Burmese government to officially reduce. So first time in the human history, people who are detained will have no choice but to give in food at that lowest possible level. So, and that 10-minute campaign is very important for the Muslim community, because right now there are other causes being discussed. Muslims have probably as many causes as there are Muslims. My request is just pick one cause. Whatever cause you can pick, whether it's the Black Lives Matters or the poverty in our country, our home places, or Rohingya cause or the Syria cause, pick one cause and spare some time and funding for that. And for the rest of the causes, you can definitely make dua for it. It has worked in an amazingly good way. For example, I'll give you one example. Some good people, some good Buddhist people, they let us know in this city, people have gathered, an attack is about to begin. Once we hear that, we do several things. We have a phone call going, we have email, an action alert to be distributed outside the mosque and the churches for people, and it just requires to create a great level of buzz. So we have by now created about 1 million people social media network on these issues through 24 different networks. So that phone call, so 10 minutes a day has real meaning. And at least in 4 occasions which we know, those attacks were stopped because of that reason. And not only in that, Muslims are involved, but some Buddhists are involved. So when we did our conference in Norway, which we were the main organizers of it, I was co-chair with Monk Zerny, we especially picked the location where the Nobel Peace Prizes are given out, Nobel Peace Institute. We selected Norway because Norway talks about peace, its name is associated with peace. But Norway also chairs the peace process in Burma. Everyone with a gun and their leaders are invited to be in the peace process, except Rohingya peoples. They are not invited on the peace process. And there, I had requested one friend, Nobel laureate, and one who is on my advisory board of the Parliament of the World Religion, Desmond Tutu, to have a statement, and they declared it's a genocide. So while sitting there, I was able to make phone calls and said within 6 to 7 hours, we have 8 Nobel laureates committing and stating it's a textbook case of genocide, although it doesn't have the mass killing of that level. We did it in Norway because Norway is a place of peace. At this moment, we thought it is important, so we invited 3 monks from Burma who stood up. One of those monks, I love to call him, I rarely take my photos with other people, but he was one of the person I requested, can I take a photo with you? He stood up in front of the writers and said, you will have to kill me first before you are able to kill any Muslim there. These type of monks and these type of priests are among the best of the humanity. We gave them an award of a person who creates harmony among people at the Nobel Institute. All of these campaigns are built with 10 minutes a day. Give 10 minutes a day to stop genocide. I will conclude by saying, and Congressman, exactly on time, my clock is working better, that before you leave, take a brochure and sign up for 10 minutes a day campaign to stop genocide. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Sorry, there's a medical emergency. One of the Burmese lady speaking Rohingya language, she had a medical emergency, the ambulance was there, so I have to do interpretation. So, and I sent somebody else to do the job. So, back right in time. Thank you very much, Dr. Malik Mujahid, Imam Malik Mujahid, for his views and his advocacy in support of Rohingya people. Our next distinguished speaker is Mr. Murad Kosi of Zakat Foundation of America. Mr. Kosi is the East Coast Program Director of Zakat Foundation. That is an organization that fosters charitable giving to alleviate the immediate needs of poor communities and to establish long-term development projects that ensure individual and community growth. Please welcome Mr. Murad Kosi to provide his views on Rohingya issue.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. Is there the author in our audience, someone who wrote a book or writing or is planning to write a book? You can raise your voice. I mean, the hands. That's nice, inshallah. And then people from Chicago. Who are from Chicago? Just raise your hand. Okay, that's good. And I was saying is that, and I'm going to make everybody instantly author right now, inshallah. And then you're going to be surprised. You know, in Islam, we believe that whatever we do is recorded. Who recorded? The angels, right? But what angels record? Angel does not write from its own mind. Basically, angels record our book. We are the writer of our books. So right now, when I am talking here, I am writing my book. And my previous talkers and future talkers, when they are writing their books. By coming here, you are writing your book. Alhamdulillah, and then you're writing a nice book today because you are here to help the Rohingya, one of the most persecuted people in the world. So I'm so glad that you are here, that just support the Rohingya. Zakat Foundation is a tool. Is a tool. Like the microphone. Let's say, if I speak here, you cannot hear me much. But if I speak here, you hear me because of the tool of the microphone. So to make our life easier to do in this life, Zakat Foundation is just like that, just a tool to help the poor and needy around the world. So how we have done, for the Rohingya, I have a personal side and then the organization side of the work, or the humanitarian aspect. One of my dear teachers, when I was studying Aikido in upstate New York, my teacher is from the Burma. I mean, I love him very much, and then not only he was a regular Aikido teacher, he was a spiritual teacher as well. As the brother was saying that, that he became a Muslim because of the work of some Rohingya brothers. It's just, I feel like most of the Rohingyas is just, there's something in them that you have some spirituality in it. And then, so Brother Waqar is here. I didn't meet a lot of people, just very few people. You don't meet you meet lots of people, Pakistanis and Bengalis, but Rohingya, just I can count how many people we met. But Alhamdulillah, today is the largest number of Rohingya I have seen, right here. Just I'm glad that you are here. A number of people whom we are knowing that Rohingya is nice. It's a very good experience. But in practice, as an organization, and Zakat Foundation has been as a tool that trying to help the poor and needy, including Rohingya, for many years. But more specifically, I would say in 2012, as the speakers mentioned, and there was all pictures and coming out and then in the media and horrible pictures, and what should we do? And then me myself was more like I don't like to share what's happening outside, what I can do, because I'm writing my book, what I can do. At the same time, I also advise what you can do. Let's write the books together. So that the books I am writing, because when we die, the God is going to ask you, what have you done? Just give us our book. So what we have done. At that time, 2012, thanks to Dr. Waqar and then Amnesty International, because the work of Rohingya, that just goes two aspects. One is advocacy, previous speaker spoke. Other one is the humanitarian. So advocacy aspect is needed, which Zakat Foundation cannot do much about it. However, we need a partner to do it. We had to partner together. At that time, we partnered with the Amnesty International. We told them, look, let's do something in Washington, D.C. We support you, and then you organize a rally in Myanmar embassy, which, alhamdulillah, we have done it. That was nice. Almost 100 people came, and everything counts. At that time, those who attended, their books are written. The angels recorded. And after that, we set up some small group of mostly professionals in Washington, D.C. Every year we have a dinner for the Rohingya cause, and it has been going on. Just last one we did in Ramadan. Every Ramadan we did, alhamdulillah. And then other organization that we partner with is the U.S. Campaign for Burma. That Simon, the good friend, he lives in D.C. He lived in more than 30 years in Burma, and then he's very passionate about it. And about the Burma, he's trying to do it. I think and then he is doing with the Thomas, probably he knows him. And then I'm glad that I just have more people that are passionate about it. And then just as things are, look bad, there is a hope. Hope means more optimistic hope. Things are getting is much better, inshallah. Because like 3 years ago, when we were talking about how many Rohingyas are there in the United States, they said maybe 50, 60, they were saying to us. But now, alhamdulillah, more. Now what I see is that I see young people, and then with the help of the people, we are going to do more work. One thing that I have noticed, because we work in 40 countries, one thing that is the cause. If this Rohingya case is like another country's case, and then there would bring more voice, because less more Rohingyas in the United States it looks like a little bit orphan. We deal with the orphan. This issue has become like an orphan issue. When I say another, in the real sense, it's just because not many people are really paying attention on those ones. But alhamdulillah, just as you said, you came here, you did a great job, and then coming here, and then with what you learn here, and then you just go outside and you multiply it. Allah will give barakah and blessings to do your coming here, and then inshallah, then things are going to get much better. I'm very optimistic about it. In terms of humanitarian aspect, what we have been doing, it's a challenging. That they said that they don't want humanitarian organization to go help in Rohingya people in Burma, especially. And then, but around the world, we are trying our best to do it. And then we have been doing the refugees in, let's say, India, Malaysia, in Thailand, and then the Bangladesh, and then inshallah in Chicago, in New York, USA as well. It's a challenging. I mean, we have done pretty much all of the places, whatever we can do. But those who do work, all we want is that let us help, because American Muslims are ready to help. Although not many people here for American Muslims, but when we reach out to them, they are very helpful, because they help the people of the Bosnia, people of Kosovo, people they are in Palestine, Syria. They are helping very generous people. They are helping. I know that they are helping this cause as well. One thing is that is sometimes become limited because of the access. We try, we struggle. There's a challenge is the helping. But we try our best. For example, for Bangladesh, they tell how the Bangladesh government doesn't want Rohingya, and then Burma doesn't want the Rohingya. They are in the middle in the refugee camps. Now we have an office in Bangladesh. I'll tell you, we have an office and the current government doesn't like Rohingya much. The previous government was nicer in terms of the humanitarian, that we have been doing the good job in the area. When the current government comes, it tells us, look, if you help Rohingya, I'm going to close you, kick you out of it. Because they kick out of the Doctors Without Borders. And then we said, okay, we are not helping, that's fine. Officially, we just keep us, we'll do it. But how we are helping, I'm just going to tell you this, is that we help through the people whom we trust, like the volunteer type of people, whom we tested. Officially, and for example, Dr. Rafa, he doesn't have official relationship with the Zakat Foundation. Or there are some people that they don't have official relationship with it. But we trust them, we help them, the Rohingya, as much as we can in that case. Even in not only the refugee camps, sometimes inside the Burma. At the same time, in terms of advocacy point, in the 2012, we advocated with the Turkish government. I am originally from Turkey. Turkish government is very helpful for the refugees and helping all humanitarian causes. And then they even, Prime Minister at that time visited. Although they didn't give full access to the areas, but we took some part inside it. And then still they are trying to do it. We are in contact with them whatever they need. Even when there was, the ship is stranded, and then we called them, what's going on? Why are you guys not doing anything? Just that everyone, they said, well, they are ready to send the ship, but they want to help the government like Indonesia or Malaysia, so they can do those kind of things. We get the feedback like this. And what other things we did? For example, we sent a journalist, a TV producer, Kevin McCurney, last year to the Burma. He has no official relationship with the Zakat Foundation. We told him, look, as a freelancer, we want you to do is to go document it, what's happening, and then come and tell people here. He went there, he had a limited access. They didn't let him go to the areas. He's an American person, he's a famous TV personality. In the past, he was doing it. And he had a hard time to enter the areas. But documentary, didn't become just like it became other part of the Burma, but not the Arakan state. So these are the things that have been doing it. Now, what's in it for us? Now, we have the Zakat Foundation founded in Chicago. This is our home. Zakat Foundation is home in Chicago in the Bridgeview. And we have about 180 families from Rohingya. So we welcome everybody. I think 20 of them are here. And then what we decided, and then with the brothers here, Abdul Jabbar, and then the Maulana is here, and then we are helping to open a Rohingya center in Chicago. We have our full support, inshallah, to do whatever needs to do. They told me there are 200 students. What education you need, inshallah, then the Zakat Foundation committed to help you right here in Chicago, and then feel home while you're comfortable, inshallah, with you and us. Will help the people whom you left over there. We are not going to forget them. First, strengthening ourselves, and then we're going to help everybody over there, inshallah. And that's about it. I just want to mention to you. I can go over and over and over. But those who want the help to the cause, those who are from Chicago, and raise your hand again. And those who are not Rohingya, can you raise your hand? Okay. I'm going to match, that's what I'm saying. While we are helping, inshallah, we need your support to help these people. Together, we are going to do together. So now, I want you to all of you, inshallah, Chicago people, okay, I know Chicago people are very generous people, generous people that, and then they're going to help you. And I'm very optimistic about it. With that one, inshallah, not only Chicago, also we are in contact with the Rohingya in Houston, as well as Atlanta, and inshallah, we are going to help other people there. But Chicago is going to be, inshallah, nice for the Rohingya, and then together we are going to help more people, inshallah. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murad Kozi of Zakat Foundation. And especially I want to thank Mr. Kozi for his initiative to work with Rohingya community in Chicago that I heard yesterday. I was updated by the community here, good initiative they took to advance the Rohingya community here in their education and all other aspects of their lives. So inshallah, we hope you will be very successful, and please thank Brother Murad for that. Last, not the least, our ambassador, a special U.S. envoy to OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Mr. Arsalan Suleiman. He is a U.S. envoy to OIC. OIC means what? Everybody knows, right? Organization of Islamic Cooperation. They're the same organization. There's a 57 member state organization. OIC is the backbone of Rohingya cause, alhamdulillah. OIC is the one who formed Arkan Rohingya Union in the Jeddah, in their headquarters, Saudi Arabia, to bring all Rohingya community together and make one single voice on the Rohingya issue. Arkan Rohingya Union. So we are very pleased to work with OIC, with the State Department together on this Rohingya cause. I want to give you a little bio sketch, background of Mr. Arsalan Suleiman. He works to deepen and expand the partnership between United States government and the OIC member countries that President Obama himself has announced in Cairo, Egypt, in June of 2009 for engagement with OIC member countries. That is, Brother Mr. Arsalan Suleiman is instrumental in that initiative that President Obama has taken. He is currently working in a lot of areas in that respect, particularly in civil matters, education, health, science and technology, human rights, and many other areas that United States government has engaged with 57 member country organization, which is for that matter, is the second largest organization in the world after United Nations, 57 member states. That Brother Suleiman is very engaged in that efforts by the United States in working with OIC member countries. And Brother Suleiman will give you a little his overview of what they have done on Rohingya issues from Washington, D.C., from the State Department. Please welcome Mr. Suleiman.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Brother Waqaruddin. Thank you to our guests, our Rohingya guests who are here and who are able to testify in person about the situation that's happening in Burma, Myanmar, and our guest as well who was able to witness it there, and all of our distinguished panelist members who have been able to travel there, many of them themselves, and see this firsthand and are doing really important grassroots mobilization effort to ensure that there is the relevant and necessary pressure from you all, from the communities, and from the governments to try to change the situation that's happening in Burma. Because as we all know and as we've all heard, the situation is unacceptable, and it's a situation that has to change. And the United States government is recognizing that, and we're using all available bilateral and multilateral channels to exert that pressure. And so I'll just give you a brief overview, because I know that we are short on time, about some of those efforts and some of the efforts that we're working on with the OIC as well. Because, you know, in the world of diplomacy, there are oftentimes many situations in countries where there are human rights abuses. There are situations like the Rohingya are facing where their rights are not respected, where they're facing violence and discrimination and ethnic cleansing. And the tools available to government sometimes don't necessarily lend themselves to an immediate solution or situation. But our jobs are to continue that pressure, to continue to use all available tools, and to ensure that all of the voices are collectively heard to put that pressure on. And so that's what we've been trying to do from our office, the OIC Special Envoy's office. But bilaterally from the United States, as many of our previous speakers have mentioned, Burma is undergoing a transition. For 60 years, they had a military dictatorship as their government, and starting in 2010, they began to change to enact some democratic reforms and democratic transition. And it's the United States policy to support that democratic transition. We want to see a Burma that is unified, that respects the human rights of all of its citizens, and that is a democracy, because we feel that democratic governments in the long term are the governments that are best suited to ensure that all of their people are respected, all of their rights are respected. And some of our panelists mentioned Sri Lanka and the links between different extremist groups who may be operating in Sri Lanka or Burma and other countries. And Sri Lanka itself has gone through a bit of a democratic renaissance, where earlier this year in January they had a historic presidential election where the reigning president, who had turned his country, which was emerging from a civil war, a successful civil war against a terrorist group, the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. But after that victory, the country went in a very authoritarian direction. And the people of that country in January of this year decided that they don't want to see that authoritarianism, because part of that authoritarian move was the rise of extremist groups, was the rise of violence against Muslims in Sri Lanka, against Christians in Sri Lanka. And in January, they voted to reject that government, and they elected a new government, a government that promised to have a platform of inclusiveness, of human rights, of democracy. And they reaffirmed that commitment to it just last month when they elected a parliament, in the parliamentary elections, when they endorsed the platform of that reformist government. And we want to see the same outcome in Burma. Our panelists mentioned that there's an election coming up in November in Burma. We want to see an election that ensures that the political leaders in Burma are going to be working towards an inclusive country, a country where the rights of all individuals, including the Rohingya, are respected. And because in the long term, that's the best way to ensure that. And our government, our leaders, President Obama has made it very clear. He's stated on his visits in 2012 and in 2015, he's mentioned the Rohingya specifically. During the White House iftar, he also mentioned the Rohingya specifically and recognized a Rohingya, a Burmese political prisoner who was there, Weiwei Nu. And so at the top levels of our government, we are pushing the Burmese government to ensure that they are respecting the rights and that they are living up to their commitment to improve the living conditions and secure the full human rights and fundamental freedoms for all communities in Rakhine State, including the Rohingya. And in our bilateral engagements with the Burmese government, we've made this clear and we've made it a priority, and also multilaterally. We've been working with countries in the region, with the ASEAN governments, and as Mr. Andrews noted, it's a very interesting diplomatic situation because ASEAN and many other countries, including many of the OIC countries, as a general matter, they try not to criticize each other's internal affairs because they don't want their own internal affairs criticized. And so it's a difficult diplomatic challenge to get countries like Indonesia, like Malaysia, like Bangladesh, like the OIC members, the Gulf countries, to actually raise with the government of Burma the situation of the Rohingya and to make that a point of priority. And we've been very pleased that the OIC has made this a priority. The OIC Secretary General has appointed a special envoy, a former foreign minister from Malaysia, Mr. Albar, to personally engage in diplomacy on this issue, and he's been very successful in ensuring that the Indonesian and Malaysian governments during the migrant crisis did end up taking a lot of the Rohingya refugees who are fleeing the country into their country, and a number of OIC member states also, at the behest of the organization, did end up giving assistance to Indonesia and Malaysia to defray some of the costs, and we out of the State Department were encouraging and supporting those efforts for the OIC. And we also co-sponsored the resolution that Dr. Bakaruddin mentioned in the Human Rights Council that focused specifically on the situation of the Rohingya and other minorities in Burma who are facing this situation. And so we continue that effort, and we look forward to your support in those efforts because, as our previous speakers have mentioned, your voice is critical. Your voices to Congress, to have them step up to pressure is important. Your voices to the administration to say that individuals who are involved in human rights violations should be put on the sanctions list is important. And we want to see that. We want to see that engagement continue, and we want to see that pressure continue, not just from the governments and our diplomatic activity, but also from our grassroots members from the American Muslim community. And also, just before I close, I just want to mention that from the humanitarian perspective, this is also an area that the United States has been very active. Over the past year, we've settled over 1,000 Rohingya in this country, the refugees who are fleeing. And that's going to be something that we are open to on an ongoing basis. Hopefully the root cause of the situation, the treatment of the Rohingya in the country is resolved and improved, so that can help stem the flow of refugees. But we are contributing to the resettlement of refugees in this country. And also since fiscal year 2014, we've given over $109 million of humanitarian assistance in order to ensure that the Rohingyas who are living in camps, who've been displaced internally and who've also been displaced and are in other countries, are receiving the aid that is necessary for them to survive. So thank you again for your interest. Thank you again for all of your efforts and your advocacy, and we look forward to that continuing and continuing to work with you all. And I would like to thank again Dr. Bakaruddin for all of his efforts and the efforts of all of our other panelists for all of the work that they're doing. Thank you. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Again, I would like to thank the audience. As a fairly large audience, we are very pleased with the size of the audience in this session. And I would like to thank our distinguished panel for their insights and their presentation and their views in this unique event. And I have a couple of announcements to make, if I may, before the session is officially concluded. First of all, I would like to request humbly to all of you, Rohingya and non-Rohingya, all Muslim brothers, sisters, to stick around for 1 minute to take a group photo. That will be very significant with our panel, because that will signify that you are standing by us, standing with us, with the Rohingya community. Please, please, please. I will be honored if you could stick around for 1 minute. Second thing is that we have booths in the bazaar. Burma Task Force has a booth. Zakat Foundation has a booth. Arkan Rohingya Union is a booth. We have a booth there. And we still have time if you could stop by in one of the booths, or there are others too, that just visit and learn about Rohingya issue and discuss the issue, and that will make us, that will be another significant step. It's just we're stopping by the booths inshallah. So with this, I would like to conclude this session, and then we are ready to take photos. Please come everyone forward here. We'll line up here. Thank you very much. Okay, can I come? I want to stand by the speakers here.